Have you struggled a bit with trying to get into Disruption and you just can't figure out what to do other than use super meta builds like Ashe or anything of that sort? Well, here's one, Nova. Nova is super goated, and all this takes is one augment. So Nova got reworked, basically combining her kit into being molecular. Prime can speed and slow without any build change, which is extremely healthy for the game. Correct. Null Star is extremely good. Damage reduction up to 90% is super solid. You can, with this relatively easy build, which is just Blind Rage, Vigor, Fission, Sheeking Shuriken, Mecha Pulse, Stretch, Equilibrium, Prime Continuity, and Mecha Empowered, mainly because of the 150% extra damage against a marked enemy, and this applies status effects to all enemies within 22.5 meters without the full 4 upgrades, which makes it 30%, is super good. The main reason this is occurring is because we're using Molecular Fission. Enemies hit by Null Star are primed. When killed, primed enemies restore a Null Star charge and have a 100% chance of restoring 2. We're using Arcane Rage and Arcane Acceleration because I really like gun buff with the way Nova plays. This is really strong. Granted, I use the Sovma. You can use a lot of weapons and get away with this, mainly because we're abusing one fact. If I hold down my 4 because I have my click on speed, if I hold down my 4 and then I go and we could just spawn a little demo mechanist here and then simulate and then unpause AI, move. We can do this. We'll just drop this, hit a 4. And now they have damage, vulnerability, and can easily be eaten alive because they are consistently slowed outside of their nullification period. Needless to be said, this is super strong, and honestly, probably one of my favorite ways to play Steel Path, because this is just objectively my favorite way. Damage vulnerability has gotten a lot better since characters like Ureli started using it, mainly because they've ironed out armor kit and stuff like that to make it a lot easier and more justified in doing. Nova basically gets away with this because instead of having to subsume something like Ensnare or anything that, like Gloom is a really good example, we can just subsume off Wormhole for Shuriken. So we have the armor reduction, just in case it's an armored unit. Or, I mean, you can even forego this and just use an arrow. I use Madurai because I really like the cast speed and such. But again, you can just use an arrow. You can maybe throw on something like Dispensary if you're hurting that bad. But don't forget, the rework, enemies slowed will drop 15% health orbs. Or when they're sped up, they drop 15% of energy orbs. Like chance, sorry. Been talking all day. But this makes it very, very easy at just slowing an enemy down and being able to farm them for whatever reason. I thought I equipped the Bratton. This is the boar. It's fine. We got the Latum. So if you're struggling to get into Steel Path, Nova is extremely viable with her new rework. Basically being allowed to get away with everything now. Having a defense mission and you need to move faster, speed them up. They have a damage vulnerability anyway. Use Shuriken and you can easily just strip armor for very little cost. I mean, Shuriken's with this build at least is 38.75. Neutral, it's 25. It's always going to be 100% damage vulnerability, but that's fine because that's 2 times damage. A wide area, we dump stat efficiency because we're constantly dropping it anyway, and Null Star gives you damage reduction to make her a survivable frame. Very, very good, very clean. Honestly, based off of her original version, I'm actually very surprised that they gave her this much, because when they were talking about the rework, and this is going to be me leveling, I was worried they were going to strip her identity, because anytime they talk about reworking a frame, it's always a worry of, are they just going to stick with like the same frame design that we've already had, or are they going to increase her kit or his kit to a point where we can justifiably look and say, yes, this is a good upgrade to our frame. Trinity was a really good example. Nyx was a really good example. And Nova's probably my favorite example, mainly because they've just ironed out all of the kinks. There's no, oh, lower your ability power. Oh, raise your ability power. It is, you can use her kit justifiably the way you want just by toggle. It's the same thing they did with Mirage. And honestly, it's probably the healthiest thing to get these frames back into the game, especially hopefully they're looking at that Oberon rework, because he does need it desperately. And so far their track for reworks and changing and slightly adjusting kits has been super healthy so far. So ideally they keep up that track record.